Hi, this is Mark Arnold with another episode of Fun Ideas Podcast. And today we have a cartoonist, graphic designer, comic artist, and his name is Eben Selker. How are you, sir?
Hello, I'm doing pretty well.
Okay. And you're a mutual friend of ours, of Greg Beda's. And I guess we could start off how you met Greg, and then we can take it from there and talk about your life.
Sure. Well, Greg actually works with me as a one-on-one independent living skills coordinator. I was matched by one of the bosses there, um, realizing that I might get along well with Greg because sure enough we are both cartoonists. He has Zeke and Goulash. I have I have a couple series, but one of them is one of the most well liked ones is Cat Donut.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so I live in a. It's not really an assisted living facility, but it's something on the way to that. Excuse me.
Bless you.
but
And
yeah.
how did I guess tell me a little bit more about yourself and then how you got into cartooning.
Well, well, I I aside from cartooning, some of my hobbies include video games, such as mostly fighting games, though, like Street Fighter and Tekken, but also the very obscure variants of it.
Hmm.
I also like swimming. I have a subscription to 24 Hour Fitness, and one year I swam every day, and I think it was 2018. But unfortunately, I screwed up my sleep schedule because I wanted to go at every hour too. It was very silly, but
Hmm.
but I also but I also kind of like old stuff to some degree. I recently been converting tapes for a few clients for both high eight tapes, audio cassette, and VHS. But what else do I like? I don't know. My first word was pizza when I was born. Um, uh, and But yeah, I like reading our people's web comics as well.
Hmm.
But what got me into web comics was that what got me into comics in general, I guess you could say by that extension, is I just kind of I watched a lot of Nickelodeon shows back in the day.
Hmm.
Um, and I figured, maybe I want to do my own characters. Um, and the first character, who I don't have a picture of at the moment, with me handy, is the Hello Bye Bye Ball. Um, he was just a ball with a face with a two-sided grin, like on his forehead there was also a mouth,
Hmm.
and just a ball that had that face and had arms on all arms on four sides, and I didn't really know what it did, but other than say hello to everybody and and so forth. But I was very proud of that character, and I always wanted to put him into other features of mine, but I haven't really found an excuse yet. Um, I've considered the idea that it might be some sort of weird angel or
Hmm.
something, but I'm still not sure what it does. Um, but but at some point I wanted to do a fan comic. And this would be the first one I've done on a computer. Um, Again, unfortunately, this one definitely has nothing surviving from it,
Hmm.
considering that computer got a virus before it would have gotten the chance to back up that file.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know, something happened where the anyway. So before I decided I'd make a comic about Bionicles.
Hmm.
I don't remember what it was about. It was probably about Matorans, which were the shorter Bionicle characters they made back then. Um, and I figured I'd name myself something, and I looked outside, noticed it was snowing, back because I was in the East Coast, and and uh, I'd call myself Frosty because I liked how cold weather felt. Um, and eventually I started doing sprite comics.
Mhm.
Wasn't particularly successful because it didn't make me feel very creative. I used sprites from various video games, mostly Sonic games. Um, but I don't know, that didn't last. But I at that point I just really did random drawings and really one panel comic type dealios where there was just one joke on one page.
Yeah.
You know, you know, like like a guy getting his head covered in oats. But um, I realized at some point that I was tired of doing parodies of other people's work. And there was actually a teacher that told me this, that if you want to make it big in the cartooning world, you can't just do parodies.
Right.
Um, even if it does get more views, it's fine to do parodies, but you need to try something else because he caught me drawing all these other characters from other franchises, and I don't know. I feel like I could have. I feel like I still could have. It's possible I still could have done it without that advice, but I still took that advice to heart.
Mhm.
Um, um, but um, but what I really ended up doing with that at first was I actually did flash cartoons.
Mm.
Um, and there was various ones I did, and I used on a website called frosty.net,
Mhm.
spelled the same way with an EY.
Mhm.
Um, and I made the mistake of not really putting any of them on YouTube, where I could have easily gotten a bigger audience.
Mhm.
But I don't know, just kind of for some reason I felt it was dishonorable for some stupid reason. Um, but yeah, but one of the most popular characters I have produced from these Flash series
Mhm.
is the Pubsleys.
Mhm.
Um, or something that sometimes they're just collectively known as Pubsley, and they look almost exactly the same and
Mhm.
behave very similarly.
Mhm.
And I never and one of the and I made this I made this one one year I was going to a con for very really recently called the San Jose Craft Fair, and my parents decided last minute that they should make a book for me of Pubsley, and they made basically they made one based off a PDF I did, um
Mhm.
uh that basically was the Flash animations, except they've been turned into frame by frame sequences resembling a comic, but not quite.
That's cool.
Excuse me. I
Now,
don't know.
do the Flash animations for this still exist, or
Yes, they
uh,
do. I
okay? So you
actually have put all the Flash animations on YouTube at this point.
so you have okay. So originally you did not, but you've since
Yeah, I
put it up.
eventually finally put them all on YouTube, with
Okay.
a few exceptions. The I didn't want to put the really expensive ones up because I figured that had no place in our modern. They had no place in our modern time. But all 10 Pubsy cartoons are up, as
Got it.
well as many other notable Flash animations, including Heg, which is a card, which was a animation all about 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 a factory worker meeting a strange man trying to sell him a bag of an unknown substance called Heg,
Hmm.
uh, which the factory worker keeps mispronouncing.
Now,
But
do you other like you held up Cat Donut? Have you done flash animations for those, or is that strictly just a comic strip or comic panel?
um, well, that's not the reason why I haven't made a flash animation for Cat Donut. Is not because I don't want to. It's that I've had trouble um adapting it into flash form. Because the thing is, all of his comics are one page and only a couple of panels.
I see.
Um, uh, um, let's see, right? There's I don't really can't really pick one of my favorites easily, but this one here, there's a lot of them involve Cat Donut trying to get coffee, but but Cat Donut here is walking towards the place, and he asks for decaf, and he's denied, and he starts ruining the place. Um, so yeah, but yes, Cat Donut I imagine would be very good animated, but likely what I'll have to do is I could either do it segmented, where I just have a bunch of little shorts. Um, Um, they might even be YouTube shorts, but I don't know. I never really liked YouTube shorts. I think if you're I think pretty much all video should be 16 by 9 at this point.
Right.
So I don't know, but maybe but it's if it gets me views, it gets me views. Um, mm, uh, what else? But before I got made Cat Donut, I went to Foothill College and discovered and had a class um, about comicking, and so I had to make a narrative, a more of a long narrative, in order for it to work.
Mhm.
Um, and this is Mash Dash.
Okay.
I made this before. I made this after Pub Sleep, before Cat Donut, and I'm still continuing to make entries into the series.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is so there's a man with a mustache named Stash.
Hmm.
At least that's his nickname, and he can move his mustache around to turn into various tools and weapons. There's Mash over here. She's a martial artist, trained in the art of Bein Ken, which just means asterisk, which means
Hmm.
asterisk fist. Um, which is a reference to how which is a reference to how she has an asterisk on her cheek. Um, then there's Paige. Um, if you haven't read this arc, I can't really tell you much about who she is, other than uh, she lost an arm at some point, and managed to get a robot arm, and also she has printer parts on her torso. And Reno is the he's not in every comic I've done, but he he has a keyboard which he can alter reality with.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a there's various uh there's various characters in this that are that have something called super talents, which is basically a slightly more correct term for superpowers. And and the justification of there being that term is, for whatever reason, they're a bit more accepted in society and usually just try to blend in. Um, I would consider it an action comedy.
Mhm.
Um, uh, I I I don't know. It's it's not as successful as Cat Donut, but it still gets about 40 it still gets about 40 followers
Mhm.
across all of the webcomic mediums that I'm part of.
Mhm. Now it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, that Mash Dash is more of a long form, ongoing storyline.
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes, it
And
is.
then Cat Donut is more single frame or short
Yeah,
story. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, it is. Mash Desk has been going on since 2014. And it's currently in its second major story arc. Um, uh, and I don't know. I'm not sure when I'll finish it, honestly, because I keep finding ways to extend it.
Hey, if you have ideas, why not use them? So that's
Yeah,
probably good.
but I have this. I've often had this dream of it one day being a fighting game. Um, uh, I'm not sure. I don't feel like it'd be by my hand because I don't like I don't like spending my time game developing. But
So what
anyway,
is the
um,
what is this? You showed it to me
so
before we started,
yes,
but
I did. So I might as well explain. So this is an arcade stick.
oh,
Um,
okay.
it's mostly used to play fighting games, and I have collected various fight sticks, and I decided it'd be nice one day to at some point to modify one of my arcade sticks so that it has art for my comics. So I made this mash dash stick.
Mhm.
I call it the mash stick.
Mhm.
I
Now
guess.
is that working or is it just have your art on it?
Um,
Well, or is it eventually going to work?
well,
Well,
I've already had it for a long time, so I've made it work. But
oh, okay.
I'm gonna have to test it again after this call.
That's
I'm
fine.
not sure if it works currently.
Yeah, but I mean, it did work at some point, so it wasn't
Yeah.
just a showcase for your art. That's pretty cool,
Yeah. So
because I have no idea how to do that. I mean, where you and I are similar, and also with Greg, is that I myself have done, comic strips over the years. I've done web comics over the years. Not too much currently because my time is taken up more with writing books and doing these podcasts. So, but yeah, I really understand the whole process and everything of what you're doing and everything like that.
right, indeed.
So what do you get for your inspirations? What it's like what how do you generate ideas typically?
Um, well, the media I watch definitely play a huge part in my creative efforts. Um, Dragon Balls inspired me. Monty Python's Flying Circus has inspired me. Um, there's this one show that's a bit more obscure around these parts, known as Kinnikuman.
Hmm.
It had a sequel called Ultimate Muscle
Mhm.
at some point that did show up in the States. Um,
Is that an anime or
yes, it's a
okay?
manga and an anime. It's
Mhm.
Kinnikuman is a wrestling slash superhero slash um action comedy thing where various alien wrestlers defend or or approach Earth wanting to attack.
Hmm.
Um, and they settle all their differences in the ring.
Hmm.
And the main character is some clumsy guy who wants to be like Ultraman, um, and and loves eating beef bowl,
Hmm.
beef rice. That is.
That's cool.
That the kind you get in Yoshinoya,
Mhm.
and it's definitely one of my favorite anime of all time. Even though it never really got to the States, partially because of censorship, actually.
Hmm.
But I found other ways to watch it, and it's a good time.
Is it sexually graphic, or is it violent, or both, or what?
Um, well, well, some of the character designs are slightly racist, but it's
Oh,
not. It
okay.
doesn't take up the whole show, though.
Right.
It was the original author's attempt at variety, is what the what I would say the main excuse is. Um, but it's still a bit unfortunate that it's associated with it.
Yeah, I get
Um,
it.
they had to remove various symbols from it.
Mhm.
Had to use certain characters less. Who knows? Um, so they technically learned from their mistakes as the series progressed, but I don't know. But I'm really there for for the plot structure and the action and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but and it's just rather it's just it's hype. It's definitely something exciting to watch.
Mhm.
Um, but other inspirations I've had are Homestar Runner,
Yeah.
known for their strong bad emails,
Mhm.
and Trogdor,
Mhm.
um, amongst many other things. But those cartoons were interesting because they featured various rather abstract main characters. Like there was this athlete that that who had a white face with white legs, and really only wore a big old red T-shirt with a star on it, and had a propeller cap. Um, and he doesn't really have arms, but he can use telekinesis to he can supposedly use telekinesis to hold things. Um, and he's got a girlfriend he who breaks up with him a lot, named Marzipan, who is a broom. Um, and there's this vaguely Garfield slash slice of pizza looking creature named the Cheat, who just he just mumbles. Um, but anyway, I was inspired by it a lot, and actually, my first Flash animation featured relatively um, uh, similarly abstract characters. But then I realized um, I may have made them a bit too random. I didn't want to completely copy their formula. Um, but one of the characters would sometimes appear again in my later works. Um, named Mr. Someone. He had a blue face and um, and a red dress, but originally I was going to have cartoons about him being insisting on being Mr. Someone, but I don't know, it didn't quite seem like the direction I was going for.
Mhm.
Um, at the time anyway.
Mhm.
Um,
Now, all the stuff you've done over the years is cartooning and the Flash animation. Are you self-taught, or did you go to any school or classes for any of that?
um, well, yes and no. On one hand, I started getting into Flash animation after getting into other various Adobe programs while being taught how to program websites by one of my family friends. Um, but I don't know. Otherwise, and I got some advice on how to use the program, but after that, I really went on from there alone.
Mhm.
for the
Mhm.
most part. But I still give credit to them for helping me learn a lot more about how what it takes to do an animation. So I guess you could say for Flash animations, I was tutored, but
Mhm.
for just to some extent. Um, but for comics, um, you know, I feel like the class I had at Foothill um, was really more so um, uh, was really more so. I'm really glad I took it because it helped me figure out the structure of a longer length plot per comic, and quite thankful, because I always wanted to make something resembling some of my favorite anime,
Mhm.
and there we go. Uh, so even though I did technically make comics, um, outside of even though I made did make technically make comics without the class before that to some smaller extent. I really made it after I really only really made it after I took that class. Um,
That's cool. And then I think on your website, I was kind of looking it over. It talks about your comic strips. So you're also a graphic artist as well. What does that entail? What have you done there?
well, admittedly, I don't do I do graphic design, but
Graphic design.
admittedly I haven't been doing it as much as I used to.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'll make a logo
Hmm.
or I have designed someone's website before a few times. Uh, I don't know. Frosty.net is a little bit outdated, unfortunately. Um, because quite frankly, I might have to advertise services I profit from more often.
Hmm.
Um, but what's funny is I actually have managed to make my comics a career somewhat. Not too much, but I work with Kim Rubin to make this series called Flash of Genius,
Hmm.
and basically it's a comic series about the patent office. We
Hmm.
use all sorts of illustrations to really illustrate our points, and but it's kind of half comic and half educational illustration
Hmm.
because it does go with other words. And here's two patent examiners, except they're dinosaurs, I guess. Um, uh, well, I like this one a lot. Here's a so there are various characters. There are various characters in Flash. Um,
Hmm.
an examiner has a visor. Um, a a inventor has a turtleneck, and so forth. It's some people tell me oh, this is not your best work, but you know what it's at least I'm at least I'm making money off my cartoons.
That's cool.
So not everyone can say that, I guess, but I don't always have very good luck getting this guy has a bunch of patent numbers on his back. Yeah.
Yeah.
um I haven't had much luck in getting commissions for my art, but
Mhm.
this I don't know, man. I got help and found this wonderful gig, and we're still producing comics, although uh, there's there's some uh, there's some questioning about about how we're supposed to how should we should be distributing them.
Mhm.
Uh, there's like there's only a couple of these books left currently, but nonetheless, nonetheless we are there is there we are making them. So yeah, so
Hmm.
that's fine by me. But
Hmm.
yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to talk to definitely gonna have to talk to Kim about getting more printed
Hmm.
because there's only like three left.
Now, do you do shows, or do you just sell these over the internet, or how do you?
Well, I actually don't sell them for the internet over the for most part.
Okay.
The figure, people are already viewing them on the internet anyway with my webcomic.
Hmm.
Um, so mostly the books I sell at conventions mostly.
Okay.
Um, what else? But then I sometimes give them for gifts as well.
So, which conventions do you typically appear at? I
Um,
know we've had a pandemic, but it's
well,
like in the
let's see
past.
here. There's the San Jose Craft Fair. That's like the big one for me.
Hmm.
Um, as well as uh various events with South Bay Comicers. Um, they've hosted, yeah, they've hosted, they've been allowed to to uh, run run a pop up gallery there sometimes.
Hmm.
They don't sell too much, but it's it's pretty good. It's pretty social.
Hmm. It's good exposure and things like that.
Yeah, totally.
Have you traveled outside the area? I assume you live in the San Jose area.
Well,
Since
I live in Sunnyvale.
okay.
Um, but I've actually lived in Massachusetts for a while
Mm.
before then. Um, I've managed to travel quite a lot actually with my parents. But that really mostly happened back when I was still dependent with them.
Right.
Um, uh, I don't find traveling as interesting as I used to because of the pandemic risk.
Right.
But I mean I'm not disinterested in it though.
Yeah. I had to
Um,
obviously ease off, but I am planning a trip to England next year. It's my first big major trip, probably in decades. So yeah.
wow,
But
great.
saving the money for that. Um, so uh, I guess so. Are you just currently working on those two strips mainly, the Cat Donut and the Match Stash, or are there other projects? Well, I guess you showed the
Oh
one book, but
well,
are
I mean
there?
yeah, there's also Flash of Genius.
Yeah.
We don't have a plan to make another book yet, but
Hmm.
um, something tells me we should. I'll have to probably convince them to use a cheaper printing company though.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I used to do a fanzine, so I totally understand. Uh, Printing costs went crazy over the years, and then I had to just stop because it was just like, am I going to pay, what month am I going to pay $500 to get these produced or something? So it was like, I had to stop, but that was like 20 years ago now that I stopped. So I have no idea how it's like now. When I write my books, they're published by other people, so I don't have to pay for any printing or anything like that. So
That's cool.
Mhm. um, let me see what else. So we were mentioning other convention appearances. Do you have anything planned in the next few months of appearances anywhere, or even store signings
Um,
or anything like that?
I'm probably going to appear at the San Jose Craft, the San Andreas Craft Fair.
Uh-huh.
That's one thing. Um, I don't. There's you typically at this time of year there would be typically at this time of year, there'd be okay, I'm sorry. I'm looking up something really quick.
That's fine.
Um uh, typically at this time of year, there'd be an announcement about whether or not I can attend, or whether or not South Bay Comicers, um whether they're going to be able to go to a whether they're going to be able to go to whether they're going to be able to go to the pop-up gallery again.
Hmm.
But I mean, yeah, unfortunately I'm not planning on much else aside from those two mainstays at the moment.
That's fine.
But at the same time, I know that sometimes there's a library Comic Con
Hmm.
um in my area. So I might try to see if I can get that to happen.
Okay. Backing up a little bit, at one point, you said that prior to creating these strips with original characters, you did a lot of parody strips and things like that. What were things that you typically parodied when you did those? Just out of curiosity.
Um, well, I've parodied Sonic the Hedgehog. Um, I've parodied um, I've parodied Homestar Runner, The Matrix. Um, a lot of the same stuff, same few things that got talked about on the internet around the time, which was the early 2000s.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't publish. I only literally published the Sonic comics.
Hmm.
Um, that those were sprite based.
Mm.
Um, but I don't know. They're kind of embarrassing.
Perfectly fine. I was just kind of curious
Not
about
much
it just
really.
because you had mentioned them. Um, I guess the main thing I wanted to have you alert the viewers and listeners is, uh, let people know all the various websites you have and how they can get in contact with you and where they can see these comics or purchase these comics.
All right. Well, I do have to say it's probably high time I've considered putting these comics on Etsy, just because
Mhm.
that'd probably be a good way to go about it since they're being republished.
Mhm.
But one site often associated with me is is frosty.net.
Mhm.
Um, I'm just gonna paste it in here really quick. Even though I don't know if I need to, but at the same time, that site's a bit old. So so the one of the best ways of one of the best ways of reading Mash Dash is to go to mash dash dot thecomicseries.com. Um, and my other comics have a similar address. There's other comics that I do include Landlubber,
Mhm.
um, with a similar address,
Mhm.
and Oh Darkling. I neglected to mention these series, though they don't have books yet.
Oh, okay.
Um, Unfortunately, I have not really played around much with Etsy yet, so I
Mhm.
can't really say much about books on
Yeah.
that front.
I've
Um,
never sold anything on Etsy. I've only bought things there, so I have no idea. So,
well, it's a reasonable way to sell comic books,
yeah.
if you're making them. So
Mm-hmm.
I might have to start doing it that way, so because of the way I've printed them.
Mm-hmm.
So
So,
hmm?
I was gonna say, since you mentioned those other ones, just mention a little bit about the Landlubber and Oh Darkling and about what those are about.
Okay,
And if you have
sure.
any examples to hold up, you can show that too.
All right, sure. Unfortunately, I don't have books at the moment.
That's right. You just said that.
Yeah. But
But
Oh Darkling is a comic series that takes place in the same world as Mash Dash,
mhm.
and it's basically just various jokes involving demons and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, One of the most beloved characters in it is a man with a diamond on his head, and he can turn a. He's mostly known for his tendency to scam people with his terrible with his terrible businesses. Um, like a restaurant that is on fire called the Fire of Your Steak. And and eventually it just burns down, obviously. But he but what people don't seem to know about it, I'm going to drop it right here, um, is that, and I'm going to introduce this in a later comic, is that Zirconius is his name, and he can, and with a pile of dirty clothes, and a bottle of ink, he can slap his own head. It shines on that pile of things, and it becomes mint perfect money.
Okay.
So he's also a counterfeiter in addition to everything else he does.
That's cool.
And he doesn't get caught, because, at least yet, because he doesn't have a machine to show.
Mhm.
But so we just various demons having mischief, but some of them are a lot nicer. But yeah, there's another character named Ned who is a vampire,
Mhm.
but 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 aside from blood, he's extremely interested on the very idea of a game.
Mhm.
He was born around the time that knuckle bones were discovered, um, and just roamed the world looking for other instances of a game. But of course, in the modern times, he's really settled down, and just finds various games to review, because he realized that there's money to be made in a as a YouTube influencer.
Mm. It's pretty cool. All right. Are there any other comics you'd like to mention, or anything else you'd like to
Oh,
mention?
Landlubber.
Oh,
Yes, I
that's
haven't
right.
talked
Okay.
about Landlubber.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, I've also linked it in chat as well. Landlubber um, is also set in the same world as Mash Dash.
Hmm.
Um, it's set 14 years before Mash Dash starts. Um, and 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 Basically what happens is that uh, there's there's this there's this there's this girl who just graduated um, from high school recently, um, who uh, who is the adopted daughter of a guy that lives in a houseboat.
Hmm.
Um, and and At some point she discovers that she's half Atlantean.
Hmm.
Um, and because she's Atlantean, uh, she's easily able to locate um, uh, the location of Atlantis, and she decides to move there.
Hmm.
Um, at this point, she's grown a set of gills on her neck, and because full-blooded blue finers are have vaguely cow-like ears and big tails, kind of like otters, and skin colors that range from blue, to turquoise and green and purple. Um, she first has a little trouble fitting in.
Mhm.
Not only that, but she finds out her blood mother. The reason why why uh, why why she abandoned her is because she didn't want her to deal with her second personality. Um, so who is a thief. So that's something.
Mhm.
Um, so but anyway, there's a lot of silly. There's a lot of subplots in this one, so it's not super easy to follow. But
Right.
there's this Atlantean who is somewhat of a rival to the half Atlantean. Her name's in the Navy, by the way. But the rival this rival person, she tries to outperform her at work, um, constantly. Uh, Her name is Cobalt, and she's also a rock star. Um, and whenever she tours with her band on land, she tells the people watching that that the reason why they look so funny is because they're wearing makeup. Um, Occasionally, I have comics in within the scope of Landlubber that focuses on that instead focuses on other characters than other random characters that just to really expand on the world of uh, of Atlantis, which has now been renamed Bluefind, um, in their own context.
Mhm.
Um, uh, there's not only is there Atlanteans, but there's also a seahorse that runs a shop. There's the domesticated shark, which is significantly smaller than most sharks we think of. It's maybe not significantly because there's the nurse shark that exists. My point is they're they're kind of like great white sharks except a lot smaller and a lot friendlier. Um, so that's a thing. So not only has these humans that um uh have survived not only that are they're these descendants of humans that have survived the continental drift of the island of Atlantis from Greece, but also you could say that there's various other creatures that have adapted to it.
Very cool. It sounds like you tend to like the long form narratives with continuity on it, I would say.
Well, what's happened is kind of starting to go back the other way
Well,
because Mash Dash is great. I like Mash Dash for its longness. I like Landlubber for its longness, but then I realize I'm starting to get carried away with it slightly.
mhm,
So Darkling has its own lore, but it's also not completely continuous. Like
mhm.
all the jokes are finished between 1 to 3 pages. Um, so Darkling is technically shorter form in that regard.
Mhm.
I try to really model it after what on newspaper comics that have occasionally changing plot.
Mm.
Um,
Of course, it's your strip, so you can take it any direction you want.
Pat
Yeah.
Donan is last series that I've come up with that has continued at this point. And I run all of them at the same time.
How do you choose which one to work on, or do you just whatever suits your mood?
Well, I feel like the answer to a lot of these kind of things is just engage in more and more writing. It's like it's actually what you're doing most of the time when you do a comic of the style of Mash Dash. But
Hmm.
I just feel like if I don't have a script, I'm not going to do it.
Right. And I think that's a wise approach because there's a lot of people that focus solely on the artwork and they have no story, and it's not very interesting that way. I think a good story, you know, always is better than, great artwork and no story. So,
Totally, totally.
mhm.
But I've I've found generally that if I want to make money, I work on a Flash of Genius cartoon. If I don't feel like drawing very detailed, I do a cat donut. Yeah. If if um if I want to write about if I want to write about family drama, I write Landlubber. Well, it's not always family drama, but anyway.
Mhm.
um, you know, one of the ways I tend to um one of the ways I tend to really come up with Landlubber comics is while I'm swimming.
Hmm.
Sometimes I wish I'd think of different things sometimes though, because lately my mind's been wandering to this place where Landlubber has been there's a lot more progress in Landlubber, and I it's a bit uncomfortable to me because it's currently I've been planning to make a tonal shift in Landlubber,
Mhm.
and I figure eventually what's going to happen is we're going to have the introduction of the brass orca,
Hmm.
which basically is the result of um of of uh of her being recruited for the army basically, and she gains these crazy powers, um partially because uh they've been she because there's been these two anchors installed in her knees that so supposedly associated with gods that can turn things into water,
Interesting.
but also can turn things from water as well.
Hmm.
And it's I've already introduced the brass orca in Mash Dash actually, because at this point it's 14 years later, and
Hmm.
and the Navy's been the brass orca for a while. But what's a little annoying about trying to fit the brass orca into Landlubber is I don't know how my viewers are going to react, because you know because it because Landlubber will be in a bit of a different genre by the time it reaches that point.
Hmm.
Um, I realize in some ways it already is in a slightly sinister position with the mother that has two personalities.
Hmm.
Um, and it's quite violent too. So, I mean, I don't know. It's been interesting because I've actually rewritten the entire story of Landlubber a couple of times already.
Hmm.
I've avoided trying to make it violent, and once again, here I am making Mash Dash again.
Well, I think for what you do, there's no hard and fast rules, so
Yeah.
whatever is suitable for the moment, is probably the best thing to work on. So,
Mhm. Of course.
any other projects? I mean, it sounds like you have a pretty full plate of different projects already, but any other
Well,
things you're considering or at this point?
there is something that is cooking. but is not quite developed for a project. There's a streaming team on Twitch known as Fraud Crew TV, and they post various things. They actually have all my cartoons on there,
Hmm.
including every single Pubsley,
Hmm.
um, 1 through 9. That is 1 through 10. That is, and so and at some point I'd agreed to making some original animations for that. So there's a few that have been written by a certain Dr. Butler,
Hmm.
as he calls himself.
Hmm.
Um, and he's a good friend of mine, and so it'll be interesting to get these out because they're all these they're very short jokes,
Hmm.
but they'll fit on the service quite well.
Very cool. All right. Well, it sounds like you're working on a lot of different projects. We will promote all these different websites and everything once we post this episode, probably in a couple weeks, because I'm always a few weeks ahead. And I want to thank you, Eben, for being my guest today on the Fun Ideas podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And we will see you next time.
It's my
Thank,
pleasure.
thank you very much. Have a great day.